This year, the ANA is collaborating with Millwood Brown Vermeer, the ARF, which is the Advertising Research Foundation, Korn Ferry, LinkedIn, and the American Marketing Association on a fantastic new study in global marketing, Insights2020. Here to give us a preview of this terrific effort are Millwood Brown Vermeer Chief Marketing Officer Marc de Swaan Arons and Chief Executive Officer and President of the Advertising Research Foundation, Gayle Fuguitt.
Good morning, everyone. Let me give you a little backstage secret. I had the honor yesterday of being part of a CMO panel with 5 very high-powered CMOs. And in the nervous minutes, and they are nervous minutes, before we went on stage, I was observing 4 very high-powered CMOs talk not about big data, not about social, and not about mobile. No, it was about their shoes. And I have to say, they were discussing which were the most high-powered shoes, but I think everybody here would agree that, Gayle, you just blew them out of the water with your boots.
Thank you, Marc.
And I think that says everything about Gayle. I'll let Gayle introduce herself, except just to say that I had the honor of being on stage here 2 years ago. The ANA had a huge Marketing 2020 study, and as we were going through those findings, there was one lady in the audience who had just been appointed the new CEO and president of the Advertising Research Foundation. And she came to me and said, we need to do this. We need to do this for the insights and analytics industry. And that was Gayle. Gayle.
Thanks, Marc. All right, so thrilled to be here. And there have been a lot of confessions over the past few days here on the stage, and I have one. I'm an insights gal. So it might not surprise you to find out that I'm going to tell my story quickly by the numbers. I spent 32 years at General Mills. I led and built the Global Consumer Insights Department over the course of 18 years. I had 19 bosses in 21 years. When I started, we had a $50 million budget. When I left, we had a $150 million budget. When I started, we had 100 people in the group. When I left, we had 250 people in our Global Consumer Insights organization. Over the course of about 18 years, we invested $70 million in venture capital to do things like internet research, social media research, mobile research, and then I retired for 9 months. So I obviously failed. I have been at the Advertising Research Foundation for 2 years, as Marc mentioned. We have 32 people in New York City. I have 1 husband, 1 dog, and 1 son. All right, so here's what we do. Marc invited me to talk about what we do at the Advertising Research Foundation. I'm here to tell you that over 79 years, I haven't been there for all of them, obviously, we have demonstrated and proven over and over again that advertising works. But the key question is, how does advertising work today? And what you're going to hear through this Insights 2020 initiative, which is the most exciting thing that I think is happening in the industry, is that in order to stand and deliver, consumer insights executives have to listen to the C-suite questions and attenuate themselves to them first. So that's what we're doing at the Advertising Research Foundation. The key C-suite question is still, do my marketing dollars drive growth and sales? Where do I spend my next marketing dollar? And how do I quickly get into this whole area of mobile quality? And how do I know that I'm measuring it accurately? So we're doing 3 ground truth experiments right now. We are going to define optimal cross-platform mix today. We're going to define how brands are built in the brain, because we passionately believe in neuroscience, and we believe that brands are built in the brain. And we're going to create mobile quality and a mobile quality checklist. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Marc de Swaan Arons, who's turned the industry upside down with Marketing 2020, Advertising 2020, and now Insights 2020. And it's just absolutely delightful to partner with you, kind of partners in crime and innovation, maybe.
All right, well, I'll be very quick. I don't have many numbers. I'm just a marketer. I'm not a researcher. For me, there was one number, and it's embodied in this picture. The number is 50. I turned 50 last weekend. And my very best childhood friend, we really haven't had a lot of contact in the last 20 years. He came over to New York to celebrate it with a lot of friends and my family. And he brought a picture of the two of us when we were 8.
Yeah, I love it.
And we took this picture together. First we thought it was my son's, but when you look at it, actually not a lot has changed. And I think that's true for so much in marketing. There is a lot of change, and at the same time, we often have to go back to the fundamentals. A little bit about Millward Brown, because if you know Millward Brown, you probably don't know Millward Brown Vermeer. We were created a year ago when we bought Kantar's consulting group. And we do things like strategy, brand purpose, like Quaker and Tropicana's purpose, or Dulux paint, you may have seen. We do structure. We build marketing organizations, like Verizon's new marketing organization. And we build capability, because no marketer, I think, really feels that they are doing what they need to be doing to be successful. And we're very proud that we actually are setting up Google's Masters of Marketing in a Digital Age group. And very importantly, we also help with valuation, because when a marketer isn't able in the boardroom to say what the value contribution is of the programs that they're developing, then they're just not taken seriously. So we're very proud that Red Bull works with us to actually value and put a number to the programs that they run. But more importantly, we don't like talking about ourselves. We like, indeed, as Gayle said, to be a contributor to the industry change. Marketing 2020 was a huge initiative that we jointly led with the ANA. It led to an HBR article, and it led to Agency 2020, some Google work, but also a real framework for what it takes to win in the future. And some of you who were here before will have seen that we talked about big insights, about purposeful positioning, and about total experience, and then the organization that you need around it. But we didn't go deep enough onto each of these. This was a framework that just offered a roadmap to the future. And big insights was first on the list, and we said we really need to start probing to what does it actually take to win. And that's why we created Insights 2020, and that's what we're here to present to you today. But before we do that, we want to take a 1-minute video to just set out what we really meant to address in Insights 2020. Please, let's look at the video.
We're living in exciting times. Globalization, urbanization, new economies, and new technologies are driving huge business and marketing changes. The technology is empowering consumers, more informed, expecting transparency, demanding accountability, and challenging growth. Growing amounts of data, yet often lacking true insights. Today's insights and analytics world is changing at the speed of light, forcing business, marketing, and insights leaders to answer fundamental business questions. Are we truly consumer-centric? What insights do we require to guide our strategy? And how do we organize to win? That's why we created Insights 2020 to identify the drivers of and how to achieve true customer-centric growth.
So if I had to pull it together, it is that we are now living in such a connected society. The number of 220 billion connected devices is mind-blowing. But what it's forcing all marketers to face up to is that our traditional sources of competitive advantage are dissipating. Whether we had manufacturing excellence or advantage or distribution or even IT, what we're seeing now is in the age of the connected consumer, it is about consumer centricity. And everybody is talking about it. But actually, when you drill down to it, it really does probe the question of, does that drive business growth? And what are the drivers of customer centricity in the mix? And how do we actually achieve customer centricity in companies where often we're coming from a past of product performance or drug excellence or technical excellence and innovation? How do we drive that customer centricity?
All right, so this is an amazing project, and what's important for all of you to know is it's not a project actually, it's a movement, it's a coalition, and it's something that you're all going to be invited to participate in this morning and ongoing. We have a number of initiatives. The way that it all came together though was fueled and led by Marc de Swaan, Arons, and his capable team at Millward Brown Vermeer, and these founding partners, the Advertising Research Foundation, SOMAR, LinkedIn, Korn Ferry, and Kantar. And what I want to share with you is that this project in research timing got done in 5 minutes. And I'm going to share with you in a minute how big and important it is and the breadth and depth of the scale of the project. In addition, we have publishing partners, and we've included a number of publishing partners, including the ANA and many organizations that are represented here today. So how did it get done so quickly? It got done because of the leadership of Millward Brown Vermeer. In my career, research projects were like 6 weeks and $60,000. But in what seems like 5 minutes, this group of people have brought together insights and information, as you saw in the film, from 60 markets, including 337 in-depth interviews and over 10,000 surveys. And then there's going to be a coalition of behavioral insights from LinkedIn, of Wharton crowdsourcing studies across significant global research teams. So when we tell you what the findings are, please know this is the research slide for anyone who's an Insights gal or guy in the room like me. This is a slide that says this is good stuff, okay? Now, what's important about it is, you know, bosses want you to quantify the results. They're like, I hear you telling me we should be consumer-centric or we should be purpose-driven, but why don't you show me if it's going to work or not? What I love about this project is that this organization, these people through this project have actually identified overperformers and underperformers, and then taken the 60 attributes and identified that actually there are only 10 key drivers that really drive business growth. And so you're going to be able to profile your organization against the winners and find out where you rate, and then you'll get key insights as to how you can actually grow. So the opportunities, and we all know we've been talking about insights for years. I actually changed the name of market research to consumer insights back in 1998. Overperformers are able to actually drive insights into action across all touch points. They recognize the importance of behavioral data, not just attitudinal data, and they fully recognize, as you've heard on the stage for the last few days, the importance of personalization. But the one key driver is brand purpose. That's the secret sauce. That's where the magic is. And Marc will be sharing kind of how to get out into brand purpose and connect it to this consumer-centric world in just a minute. This is especially true for overperformers. As we look at underperformers and overperformers' challenges, we also see differences. So what we see is that underperformers tend to be focused internally. They tend to be more likely to have silos. They tend to be focused on a legacy of structures and functions. They're maybe having conversations about how they should be organizing rather than having conversations like overperformers are about how to make sense of all the data, how to synthesize data, how to tell a story, how to take a stand. That takes different skills. They're looking for whole brain people, the left brain and the right brain working together. I love the previous speaker who talked about not just being intoxicated by data, but actually bringing out the art of storytelling.
So Gayle already mentioned, in our research, we looked at 60 attributes because we thought somewhere there were the magic diamonds of what makes a winner versus a loser. How do they act differently? How do they think differently? Out of those 60, precisely 10 showed very significant differences in how overperformers in revenue growth acted and thought about these topics versus underperformers. We've clustered those 10 attributes, we call them drivers, into 3 areas: total experience, customer obsession, and the insights engine. And I'm now very quickly going to take you some of the highlights that actually sort of lead up to that, the 10 drivers of overperformance. Let me start with the first one, which is indeed about purpose. You've heard Bob Leadys talk about it. You've heard many people on the stage talk about this. What we find, and I'm going to explain how we show the data just because this is the first chart. On the orange triangle, you see that 80% of the overperformers, in other words, these are companies that are growing faster than their peers. We want to emulate them, don't we? Over 80% of the people in those companies told us that they link everything they do to a very clearly defined brand purpose. But interestingly, within the people that had self-identified as underperforming organizations, we do worse than our competitors over the last 3 years, it was only 32%. So purpose, as the guiding principle here, is very important. The second is customization and the use of insights and analytics to actually drive customization. Creating experiences, which is why we called it the total experience, that are data-driven. Again, a huge difference between overperformers and underperformers. And then finally, what I as a marketer consider to be the litmus test of whether we have our act together as the number of touch points explodes is, are we leveraging insights and analytics to drive consistency of our brands across all touch points? Burberry does this beautifully, and what you see is again, that overperformers, more than a factor 2, get this right compared to underperformers. Now, the second area is really about what's different about how people deal and think inside the company around consumer centricity. And there's some very interesting facts. In fact, 4 drivers ended up in this segment. The first is that this sense of customer centricity is fully embraced by all. Now that's an easy thing to say yes to. And in fact, among winners, 80%, 79, say yes, that's true for us. Marriott is a great example. And when I made this slide, I didn't know I would be presenting it in a Marriott. But nevertheless, only 13% of the people that work in underperforming companies say that that's true. Or another litmus test is really, how does the boss get paid? Is customer centricity a top priority, not for some department that's supposed to get this right, but by the real bosses of the company? 91% of the overperforming companies say yes, that's the case. Less than half don't. Or are there incentives, literally their bonuses, based on related KPIs? Again, huge difference between winners and losers. But also how they deal with each other and with external partners. There's been talk about that on stage this week. Collaboration, working with partners and customers, big difference. And what that takes is experimentation and risk. LinkedIn themselves, I think, are a great example of this. But look at the difference in scores among overperformers and underperformers. So, Gayle, why don't you talk a little bit about the engine, the Insights and Analytics engine?
Right, thanks, Marc. So really, how do you create a culture that embraces risk and that actually drives toward experimentation? It really is all about the people. It's about leadership. And there are 3 key characteristics to creating an insights engine, which is really driving performance. The first one is having a leading role of insights and analytics across the entire organization. So it's not a service organization, it's not a department, and it's not siloed out, and they're not just project managers. And a great example of this is Unilever and Stan Stananathan, who actually is also an ARF board member, and his leadership across his global organization. He's been able to actually demonstrate what you see here, which is 3 times, is that overperformers are 3 times more likely to have insights and analytics lead across the entire business. And even more importantly, how do you do that? How do you get into the C-suite? Well, it would help if you were already there. And so a great example of that is Harish Bhatt at Tata, who actually, I think, Marc, you said he's 3rd ranked in the whole.
It's 2 Tata brothers, and then there's Harish. The 3 of them run the company.
Right? Very impressive. And so Insights and Analytics at Tata is clearly leading across the whole organization because it's reporting to the CEO. Why is this important? Because the insights and analytics are being applied in these companies across the whole spending portfolio. So they would be included in merger and acquisition activity. They would be included in decisions about how to spend sales dollars, not just marketing dollars. They would have a partnership with the finance organization. If they did a segmentation study, it would be a key decision maker for the whole organization, driving this customer centricity that Marc has been sharing with you. And then the 3rd key area, and people often say we need to harness the data. I don't think anybody's going to be harnessing the data anytime soon. What we really need to do is unleash it, but we need to do that by linking a lot of different sources of data. We're facing a measurement mandate. We need to be creating better measurement in real time to answer business decisions. The companies that are able to link disparate data together and make decisions, synthesize, tell a story, take a stand, are significantly overperforming those companies that are looking in the rearview mirror or that are expecting a report to give them the answer. The critical capabilities, though, we all know come from personal leadership. And so what we see, and this is really, really important to note, is that in addition to the activities that are being conducted in the organization and the role of leadership, the leaders in insights and analytics need to be business people first. So they can do a research project, but they need to say, all right, here's what the data says. Now here's what my point of view is as a business person in order to get and keep their seat at the C-suite table. They need to bring whole brain thinking. They need to be artists and scientists. And they need to be really good at telling a story, because we all know that the consumer is at the center of marketing and of the world today and of business, and the ability for any organization to really bring the voice of the consumer to the decision table is going to be a game-changing differentiator.
So what we talked about was 10 different drivers that really make the difference between overperformers and underperformers. But it gets particularly interesting when you actually start to see now in terms of how you can now take that to your business and actually apply it.
All right, so we fought over who got to show this chart because we're going to geek out here. It's got a bunch of numbers on it, and I won because I'm the insights gal. So here's what you're going to get to do, and I think about this as the money chart for our whole presentation. You are going to have the opportunity to profile your organization against these key 10 capabilities, and then the analytic platform is all set up to be able to show where you are overperforming, maybe even the overperformers, and then where your gaps may be in order to focus your organization on a few key steps against these 10 key capabilities and demonstrate to your boss, get into that C-suite and show them what the revenue growth potential is, because that's what we really want to do, is we want to get to the top line, not just the bottom line.
And over 70 organizations have already done this among their own teams.
Which is where the benchmarking is coming from,
exactly.
Right? Yes.
So, now what? Obviously, you can't do justice to a piece of research like this in a 25-minute presentation. What we wanted to leave you with is something, somebody said it yesterday, I want to give you a gift. I think that's not what we're talking about here, but we would like to share just some real practical things that perhaps as marketers we can do different tomorrow, and then there's an invitation to join a movement, as Gayle said. The first thing that we notice is that overperformers in their mindsets, they have less of a focus on the actual products and services that they have traditionally been offering to their customers and consumers. And they're thinking and expanding into bigger need state solutions, total experiences if you like. Really, if that's the need that we're addressing, what else can we do based on a purpose that actually delivers value around the same need? It forces us as marketers to think bigger. The second is that maybe the databases don't connect. I don't know a single company where they've told me that all data sources are beautifully linked at the back and all the data is clean, as they said. I learned so much in that roundtable yesterday. For about half an hour, I was just listening. I didn't even understand the questions. But nevertheless, cleaning data, that obsession that researchers may have of getting it all right is not where the energy should be. It's around what can we do with it? Fine, sit in a room with the outcome of all your different databases on different walls and just sit there and make the time to think about, now what are we going to do about this? Rather than connecting it all. Outside focus rather than inside. And instead of thinking about managing risk, which of course there's somebody in the company that needs to do that, we as marketers really need to be experimenting. We need to be encouraging the company, our colleagues to be experimenting. It's something that correlated so high with overperformers. You try it, you iterate, you learn, you improve, and you go out there again. That's what the characteristics of winners are showing us. And instead of just thinking about delivery to customers, think about actually co-creating, collaborating with your partners in the supply chain, backwards. I was speaking to a lady from Sony yesterday who was telling me about how she was innovating with some of our key suppliers on making better movies. That's the stuff of collaborative innovation. But also your customers, Lego, LinkedIn, Uber, all examples of companies that are improving what they offer because they don't sort of want to keep it behind the stage and then launch. No, it's a mindset of actual iterate improvement. But we wanted to end with an invitation, because this is not something that we have, ta-da, and here's everything you need to do. What we've identified is the characteristics of the winners. What we haven't presented to you, and it would take far longer, is how exactly, when you go home on any of those 10 drivers, do you do that? And that's what we created the Insights 2020 movement for, with a lot of different touch points that we are bringing to the market and bringing to the CMO community. And what we're going to do is for each of the 10, like integrating multiple data sources, we're going to define what the steps are. And we actually know what those stages are, but we're also going to define what the stories of winners are on how they went along that journey. The pitfalls to avoid, the accelerators, how to convince the business, how to measure progress, and how to get people behind these initiatives. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next 12 months for sure. The ANA is a big partner in this. Bob and Nick Premola, who runs the CMO community of the ANA, are setting up a series of roundtables. There's 4 just in the next 8 weeks, all across the country, hosted by big brands around how do we do this right? How do we do this? And this is an open invitation to everyone here to join us and be part of that movement. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow, come on, join me in the center. That was terrific. I don't even know where to begin. You guys just presented so much that my head is exploding, but fabulous. I don't know about you guys, but if you have to start thinking about how to start to manage your brand and how to take a lot of the insights that you took over the last couple of days, this is a great framework, I think, to really get started, because everything has to be grounded in facts and data, and these kind of insights really do help. So I'm going to turn to you first, Gayle.
Okay.
Think about the marketers that are sitting out there. How do they take this, and what are the kinds of action steps that you see that they should take in order to begin leveraging what is coming out of this study?
Right, so the first thing is, and this is what I love about this study, is it's absolutely actionable, right? You're not just going to get a big pile of, you're not going to get a white paper that you have to then read through and figure out what you should do. The first step is go run, find your insights gal or guy, the person in charge, right, that is in your organization, and invite them to profile your organization, because it's all set up to be able to do that. The second thing I would do, because I believe firmly in what you were asking about this morning, Bob, as a networked organization,
right,
is help your insights person get externally connected to organizations like the ANA, the ARF, many other organizations where they can actually build a personal network of other leaders. So they can find their peers that are struggling right now with a lot of the same questions.
Great. Marc.
I'm just reading some of the questions and having fun already.
All right.
They're all about your boots.
Oh.
Yes, Bob. Let's stay focused.
You've done Marketing 2020, you've done Advertising 20, you've done all these 2020s, and you've got a head full of knowledge, a head full of experience on this stuff. As you start to see all of these studies start to come together, there's got to be some real good convergence points that are probably the most striking examples. You've got your top 10 list. I wrote them down, I've got them here. I wish I could have had 3 hours to go through all of these. But what pops out as the kind of thing that if you think about marketers need to rally around, what are the 1 or 2 areas, use the word focus, you have 3.
I have
Good.
3, it's very simple. As marketers, our job is to bring the outside world, to bring the customer centricity into the whole organization. My first boss at Unilever told me, if you're in a room with board members and everybody else, they all know more than you. Make sure that you went to the focus group the day before, because no one can contradict a statement that says, I was in a focus group and this is what our customers were saying about our products.
Gotcha.
Customer centricity through the veins of an organization is the role of marketing, and market research, insights and analytics are merging. That's one, so big insights. The second is that as marketers, when founders leave, companies replace the CEO with a CFO. It always happens. And then 20 years down, they forget why they exist.
Right.
What is their purpose? Why do we exist? We have so much work, and so many organizations are being forced by the transparency, by customers to say, why should I work with you? Why should I spend money on you?
Right.
Our role as marketers is to make that purpose clear again within the organization. And then what excites me, where I think the innovation is going to be, is the third aspect, which is creating experiences. It's so much more fun now with all the activation tools that we have, all these touch points where I jump into an Uber car in Amsterdam 3 days ago and they play my music from my Spotify playlist. It was just a simple idea, but it's an experience. Yeah. Brilliant. What's my equivalent for my category? That's the 3.
Got it. Let's go to some questions, and I think we'll pass on the first one for a moment and go to the second one, because we're into boots today, apparently. Gayle, when and where will the fuller results be available? I'd like to use some of your stuff, but need to get deeper info in the methodology.
Right, they're available now. We're sharing it through our organizations, so through the ARF website, through the ANA website, certainly through Miller Brown Vermeer. And then we're more than happy to also create a personal connection and have a conversation. I think that's what's really important, Bob, is we need to get out and have these conversations about what the issues are and be really candid with each other.
So should they reach out to you guys, or how do they activate
Insights2020.org.
Okay.
Everything's there.
Good, very good. Let's go to, let's see, the next one. A lot of this I expected to hear. What was the most surprising thing you've learned so far? Marc?
Well, this is true. I mean, I have to say that for most of the marketing studies we've done, you could step back and say, is this surprising? What I think is powerful is that as marketers, we're always championing this in the business. But what we don't often have is the data point that comes with it that says, look, here's 10,000 companies that participated, and this correlates with overperformance. Not just a little, a lot. So that the data backs up so strongly some of the things that we've been talking about. It would be crazy if we came out here with a completely new concept. But what I think we're offering marketers and insights and analytics people are tools to convince the rest of the organization to get behind this, and very practical roadmaps to actually do it.
Yeah. Gayle, you're a veteran of the research world. How do we deal with the way insights and ideas are coming forward now through the research community, as opposed to where we have historically been?
Right, well, lift it up in the organization. And what's really important, and for me the most surprising thing, and the thing that I love about this work, we've been studying what's the role of research for years and years, for my whole career, right? We've been trying to understand what the drivers of success are. This study actually did 2 things that we've never done before. It well articulates the role of leadership, because you used to get just a checklist of do this, do that, do that, right? But you knew that behind it were different leadership skills, and this study actually articulates specifically what leadership skills are needed. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're able to quantify revenue growth tied to these action items. And so by definition, that's going to get the attention of the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, and we'll help bridge them together, because that was one of the key insights, is if they can all get together around this customer centricity and take these research studies and lift them up in the organization, they'll be able to drive better decisions.
May I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Korn Ferry is a partner of this study. And what we're now doing, I was speaking to them yesterday about this, for the CMO roundtables that we're doing with the ANA, is they're actually coupling these findings with what they know to be leadership capabilities that are needed for the future. For example, the collaboration between the CIO and the CMO. They've done a lot of work in that space. And we're truly now going to be drilling down to say, I see some of the questions are, what do I practically do? I mean, these are not sort of hit the switch things. These are about change management. These are about bringing a bigger presence of the insights and analytics discipline, and also the individuals. There's a lot of reschooling and growth that needs to happen.
Excellent. Well, we're down to our final question, and you know what I'm going to ask, which is, they're going back on Monday. Besides saying tap into Insights 2020, what are the one thing that each of you would like this audience to walk away with? Gayle, start with you first.
Okay, so these boots are made for walking. And I'd say run, don't walk. Run. Run back to your organization and find some important insights, and to have the courage to get it up into the C-suite. It just takes courage. You have to, because too often researchers say, well, we knew that, or we had the answer, we knew that a long time ago, but nobody would listen to us. It just takes courage, or we already told them that. Well, tell them again.
Well, we're going to need the courage to get those boots and kick the CEO right where you know where. Marc, you've got the final word.
Well, for me, it's experimentation. everyone that's here and that was here this week goes back Monday morning. People may ask, where were you? And our tendency, because it was in Florida, our tendency might actually be to just sort of take the learning for ourselves and sort of try and improve a little bit iteratively. I think this is an age of experimentation and of sharing. And so as leaders, and you are leaders, when we get back, take an hour or two with all your colleagues to say, this was the program. This is what I learned. Here's new stuff that I didn't know. And the experience that everybody will have is, one, they will learn, but two, they see that you're out there trying to learn, experimenting. Show, try, and fail, and reiterate and improve. Because people like listening to you, but when you act differently, they might emulate.
Courage and experimentation. What great advice. Ladies and gentlemen, Gayle Fuguitt, Marc de Swaan. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Great.